Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I am your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, our network is going into its 15th year and is listened to in over 30 countries. I would like to personally thank you for giving me the gift of your time. It is always my honor to hold space with you. And today we have an amazing guest with us, Mr. Nick Dunbar. He is a man that I can say is consistently busier than me, which is kind of hard to do because I get that a lot from everyone. Like, hey, how do you do all of the things? And I'm kind of like, I don't really know. I just do them and put out whatever fires in front of my face first. And Nick and I actually do a few of the same things, which is how we kind of came together. And so I'm going to throw him under the bus so he can tell us all about how he balances all of the seeds that he has planted in his life,
Well,
starting with
gee,
whichever one he feels like he wants to roll with.
well, yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on here, and Gia and I do have that connection, and I kind of like that motto of or not motto, but if you don't know how you do it, you just kind of put out whatever fire comes in front of you. And I wish I could say that I have some master, um, you know, uh, skill to put this all together and make it all happen. But I do agree with Gia that you kind of deal with what comes to you. I think a big piece of this, and I think which pertains to the podcast, is also like the mindfulness piece of it, and responding versus reacting. Those types of things where it's you know being in a place where like you can receive something and sort of like have like absorb it and then take a moment and then be able to respond accordingly versus just this like crazy reaction piece, and that's been a discipline for me, and a lot of that is just bandwidth. And I moved to a new area. Being in real estate, really had to put myself out there. I had to say yes to everything when I initially got here, and there is something freeing about being the yes man and just being the guy that anybody calls and says, "Hey, you want to go fishing? You want to go grab a drink at the bar? Do you want to go to a yoga class?" And being that guy, and then finally like have planted many, many seeds and starting to come to the other side of that where I can sort of pick and choose what I want to do. And I would say I still like to be the yes man, but I've also realized that like there's sort of a expiration on what I can give. And then also prioritizing like who that I give it to. And I have three children, 3, 5, and 7. I have my wife, I have my animals, I have my health, and starting to be able to sort of put an order to those things. I hate to say that that's like it sounds like I have a list of priorities, but I do.
You have to.
Yeah, and
Like
that
that's life. That life. That's not just you. You shouldn't feel bad about it. You have to prioritize in your life. And technically, even though like your family comes first, your own health has to come first, or you're not doing your family any services either, you know?
yeah.
That's just part of it. Like not pouring from an empty cup is a huge thing, you know? And with all of the things, so Nick, much like myself, we're both in real estate, right? We're both certified yoga instructors, certified and certifiable, as I like to joke. And Nick also has an amazing music career and has a whole first part of his life that was out in Colorado that affect that kind of ties into your whole musical career. And now you've brought that whole piece of it and plunked it right down in our now home state of New Jersey. In addition to homesteading and all of the other things that you do, including raise 3 adorable children and a beautiful wife.
Yeah, and that I mean that and the health thing is a big thing, and I don't know how much you shared about your trip on it, but I've definitely in the last year have had a little bit of intervention with my body and and my mental health and some physical stuff that has manifested through mental health stuff. I totally feel at my core. I mean, I have like a, kind of like a gouty arthritis type thing that has like, has been circulating through my body, and I've seen a lot of specialists and doctors, and I haven't been able to seem to get it under control. And then, I found out about this one doctor, that healing the mind, healing the pain is kind of the motto. And I've, been doing a lot of um, work on that and have had a lot of success with it. And so that, I think I was sort of forced to slow down. I probably would have just kept going, and then it was a little bit of divine intervention, and it was like, yeah, your body is telling you that you need to sort of shift your priorities on that. And I was doing food stuff, no alcohol, lots of different things that, what you would assume would probably get it done, and it wasn't working. And lack of a better, visual, I was sick in the head. And so I've done a lot of work on that, and I'm still doing a lot of that. I do the Vedic meditation, once or twice a day. I try to sit for 20 minutes, with my mantra. And um, you know like we have so much noise in our lives when it comes to work, social media, expectations. Everybody has access to you at every second. It's like you get an email and you don't respond in 15 minutes. Everyone is like up in arms. I mean, even our text messages, unless you set it, it will say read or
Yeah.
not read. And
Turn off read receipts. Turn
you
off
read
read receipts.
you read that text message, and
I know you
like
saw.
it's totally like it's paralyzing.
Yeah.
And it's like people are so worried about like how they're being received and how people think about them. I mean, it's like the basis of what drives social media and things like that is like receiving affirmation from, a highlight reel of things that you put up. And with that's also a tool in, not as much in real estate for me, but like for music and things like that. So I
Yeah.
am, somewhat of sort of a slave to that. And then, putting up boundaries has been a discipline and a practice. And realizing like, all right, this doesn't serve me. Yeah, maybe it would help me get gigs, or it would help me, with my fan base, but actually, like, overall, it's affecting me worse on my mental health, and which is causing physical stuff, which is causing, me to be reactionary with my children and my partner, and like, it's like this chain reaction. And so like the like, and I've always like had this dream of like being just like a yoga teacher in like a really corporate space, and like doing mindfulness in the business sort of sphere. And I think that is like the most important thing that you can do is finding that balance. And I really don't think it takes like that much time. I just think it takes like focus and intention and then execution. And saying I'm not going to respond to an email like between these times, or like I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb at this time. I'm going to have a limit here, and then having things like yoga, meditation, whatever, and making sure that you execute on that as well.
And I think so a couple things. Like one thing, just because you mentioned the word, and I think that a huge part of the boundary setting, it's all a practice, right? Your health, your meditation, your self-awareness to know that you need to focus on these things. Like I had a health issue crop up around the same time. It's kind of weird, like around the same time. Mine's a thyroid issue, but it comes from like it's an autoimmune response, which is not dissimilar to arthritis. And it comes from like running yourself into the ground because you say yes to everything. I took a step back from, I was on three different boards. I stopped one of those boards entirely and took a step back from that. And you just have to start altering your priorities and saying no. And that can be really hard, especially when you're in sales and you're in no matter which aspect of the life of your life you're focusing on, whether it's your music, which is like your passion project, whether it's your business, it's all pouring out of you. And at some point you can't just be a seeping sponge, or there's not going to be anything left. And your body, I'm a firm believer from just years of yoga and spirituality that your body is a reflection of your mind, right? Healthy mind, healthy body. So as you start to abuse your body to ends beyond yourself, your body's going to let you know. It's like my mom always used to say, if you don't check yourself, she said, God, the universe, whatever, the universe is going to check you for you. Something's going to come in and stop you, whether you get, a lot of people get sick, even if it's a flu or a cold, and like they'll run until they're just run into the ground. And so to that end, it's like one of those, where do you draw those lines? And I think the biggest word that I've taken recently is discipline, because it's discipline, with your health, with your diet, with your intake, your consumption, whether that's social media, whatever you're consuming. We are a species that consumes things. So whatever it is that you're bringing in, you have to be disciplined enough and start to recognize, have the self-awareness, and then begin to implement the changes that you need to understand where you are and how you can best move forward to support yourself, your family, your health, your business, all of those things. And you have to discipline and priorities are the two most important things to, in my mind, to make that happen in a functional way to preserve your well-being, so that, and to set an example for your kids, right? And so I
That's
just wanted, right? Like I feel like that's just like the formula, kind of. It has to, and maybe you need to run into the ground to realize it when you're the type of person that hustles, right? When you're used to that. And not for nothing, but as we age, like we're similar in age. I won't say the number, but we're not too far off from each other. And there's a specific number. There was a whole movie called This Is You Know What. And around that age, I feel like you start to have to implement balance, or balance is going to implement you one way or the other.
When I
Um,
totally felt that. I mean, it was like as soon as I turned 40 this year, it was like, it was like all of a sudden I was like, I just did not have the same gas that I did, like it felt like a week before. It was
I
like,
know.
and so many people, have learned now is that you kind of like age, 31, 32, 33, 34, and then all of a sudden you're
Wait for your
40,
hand to drop.
have this big jump, and like I've totally felt it. And the difficulty thing with what you and I do is like, you have to put yourself out there. And what's cool about what we do is it enables us to be involved in a lot of different things. For you, the horse world, land, yoga. For me, similar, music, land, farming, all these different things. But like, you have to like be focused, and you have to, you can't just throw like this crazy wide net everywhere and just expect that it's gonna just happen. Like, you've got to sort of, for me, I moved here, and so I had to throw a wide net, and now I've seen the seeds that have taken. And so like I'm starting to, harness those and focus on those. But even within those, different avenues, I still need to prioritize there and set up boundaries and set up goals and then execute within that. Versus, I've always kind of run with like a chicken with his head cut off, and things have seemed to come together for me. But like now, like with this, age, or, with three children, or with, the priorities with my bandwidth seeming to have sort of, shrunk, I have to focus, and I have to be disciplined, and I have to, make a plan. And, beyond that is all the supplemental, things, just maintenance things, which is like the eating healthy, sleeping, going to bed on time, yoga, meditation, getting outside and walking. And so there's like these two pieces. There's like this just overall, and this is an evolution. Like, someday, like when you're young, it's like you only need so much sleep, and you only need a couple yoga classes, and it's, you need a lot more alcohol to get drunk, and there's all, and so you're constantly like going through these stages, and having to sort of, evolve with your needs. And so, having the discipline and being present, and the mindfulness piece is like vital as you change. And then you say, okay, these are now my maintenance things that just keep me ticking, keep me alive. And then these are the things that I'm going to focus on business wise. There's the things I'm going to focus on, like like fun, for me wise and and then hey, they cross over here, great. But like, having the maintenance, the things that serve you as sort of fun and freedom, and then the business things, it's like it's a delicate balance and it constantly needs tweaking and tuning and that's the thing that is really a dance.
Absolutely. And, I think that the way that you said, when you talked about your bandwidth and you said it shrunk, I don't think it shrunk. I think you hit capacity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if you
Yeah.
think about literal bandwidth, what it is at a certain point when you fill it up, like it craps out on you. That's all it's got. So I don't think, and for anyone, I don't think it shrinks. I think we go and we go and we accumulate and we accumulate and we consume and we consume. And then at a certain point, it's like your brain starts, and I've said this to people, like my brain starts to just lose things because your brain prioritizes what's most important. And so things will literally start to fall out of your awareness, fall out of your kind of 180-degree angle of focus out in front of you, and it's back there in the 360-degree part, and it's just not in your awareness out in front. And when that happens, that's how we start to kind of lose the grip on, potentially your business, or potentially, something starts to fall by the wayside. And
Yeah.
that's when it's not like it's shrunk. It's just that, okay, I need to start to bring what I'm focusing on into more deliberate practice, more deliberate choice. I can't do everything. I realize that I can't do everything well. I can do everything badly, or I can do these amounts of things
Yeah.
well,
So you start
right?
trimming the fat.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I do think
Exactly.
that you hit the max and then it's full, and then you're like, okay, now this needs to go out, this needs to go out, this needs to go out because, like you said, the 180 degrees that you're not seeing anymore is actually stuff that you prioritize and you're dropping the ball on it, and you
Right.
got to let it go. And like I know everybody has the inner monologue, like we all do, like and it's just like it's like giving yourself like a little bit of grace and some slack and be like, dude, not everybody. Like there's just like I never watch TV, but I actually like watch this show with my wife, and they there was like about this therapist, and they were talking about the inner monologue, and like he was like, man, I just. I can't face him. I can't talk to my dad or wife or whatever it was. And he's like, just visualize the worst possible scenario right now. Like, close your eyes and think about what is the worst possible thing that could happen. And then and then he's like, could you get through that? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, do you think that's actually what's going to happen? And he's like, no. And so he was like, he'd already like processed this intensity that like he was sort of like projecting was going to happen without even like experiencing what that actually felt like. And then he experienced it and he's like, oh yeah, that actually wasn't that bad. And then he goes and has the scenario, and the scenario like is nothing. There's no issue with it. And you've
Right.
spent all this time like just blowing something up in your brain that hasn't even happened yet. It's like it's crazy. And I know we all do it. And it's something that I have really, really had to work on. And that's because I'm a people pleaser. And like in our business, you've got to suck it up a little bit. And, a lot of health stuff, goes towards those types of people. And you got to know, like, nobody's gonna like be upset with you for having boundaries and putting, your priorities first. And if they do, then you don't want them in that, in your bandwidth anymore. And
Yeah.
that's because they probably have their own personal problems. And when you think about how you would respond, you would be like, wow, I would be so grateful that they were, honest and vulnerable and saying, hey, you know what, like I can't make this. I've got some personal things going on, or like, I'm making shifts. I don't want to be drinking all the time, or like, the music thing serves me on this capacity, but it doesn't serve me being away from my family. So like I'm
Right.
deciding that like right now I'm gonna take more steps with this. And like, our ego is who's always like, roaring its head at us to just be like, dude, it's like, you know, the greatest way, the strongest person that you can be, is someone that listens to themselves and like truly figures out what they need to be the best person that they can. And that is between you and your spirit. It has nothing to do with what the other kids' parents think, or or it's like it's you, and that's why the like mindfulness and the introspection and the quiet and all those things are like so vital right now as maintenance things, just to to do that kind of thing.
And I love that you said that for a couple of reasons. So one, it's always like when we all do that, right? We always go to the dark place, right? And like our mind plays out these like scenarios. And I think it's like I've said this before. I'm pretty sure it's self-preservation from like some sort of like archaeological Darwinian, you know, don't let the potential saber-toothed tiger come out of the bushes from over there and attack us and murder us. It's like it comes from that. It's like a limbic system type of brain response. And I know that everybody does it. But when you start to elevate your consciousness and you start to elevate, you meditate and you do all these practices, you practice yoga, you practice stilling the mind, and you realize that that is part of that, like, quote unquote, monkey mind chatter, right? Like that amount of energy that you expend putting towards that worry, because the worry is essentially the prayer for what you don't want to happen, right? It has not exist. It has not happened. It may never happen. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen the way that you project it to happen. And now all of this bandwidth that you could be using to write a song, to read your kid a bedtime story, right? To take your wife out on a date, to close that deal, to whatever it is, all that bandwidth has now gone completely out the window, creating a potential that you don't even want to happen.
Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
it isn't going to even happen. Like it
right,
isn't.
right. But if you think about it, it's got a better chance of happening than if you didn't, right? Like if you're
Totally.
talking
Well,
about
it
like
did
raising,
happen. You allowed it to happen because you
you
just did
focused
it
on
in your
it.
brain. And
Yeah.
that's just as bad as it actually happening in the physical world. And I totally agree. I mean, the amount of times I've like I've been looking at my phone, like doing some work thing, and then my kid asks me something and I'm super short with him,
Yeah.
because like I'm somewhere else and like all my kids just like, yo, dude, I just wanted to see if you would like, feed me some, whatever,
Yeah.
and like make me a snack. And it's like you just like it's really bad. And I have like had come a long way to really try to shift that. And I feel like I'm, on a much, much, much better path. And, it's every day. It's like get up in the morning, do my med first thing in the morning, like talk to my therapist,
Yeah.
like there's just like it's just so important that like you're able to like receive things and not just like instantly react. Like you have to receive and you have to just take a breath and
Yeah.
diffuse it, dilute it, and then gather your composure and then say, okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to react. And then eventually I think you train yourself, with a lot of practice to not have those initial responses. And I'm still in the place where I'm like, I'm responding, but I'm keeping it inside and I'm noticing it. And I'm like, okay, noticed, noted. And then I'm like, all right, shift. And, I'm hoping after, enough time that I'll be able to retrain to be like, more of in this, space. And I laugh because like my father-in-law, he's like, Vietnam vet, flew for Ronald Reagan. He flew John Denver, the Grateful Dead, like, crazy, grew up poor and is big time in the aviation industry. And I'm like, he's reached like full enlightenment because like he doesn't like he just responds. Like he doesn't think about it. Like it just comes out and if he speaks from his heart always. And sometimes you're like, dude, that was so out of control. But he'll just own it and he'll just move right through it. And it's like, but he trusts his gut and his response so much that he's able to be free with it and not have this crazy mind thing associated with it. And if it comes out the way that it shouldn't have, he just is like, I screwed up. I'm owning it. And he like
Yep.
moves through it. And it's like, I mean, I don't want to be so reactionary, but I also
Right.
look at him like, wow, like you're free, like you're totally free. And it's a pretty cool thing to witness.
Well, and so I feel like you're talking about like the flow state, and I've seen you play music, and I will say that I believe that I actually haven't taken one of your yoga classes, but when I see you play music, I believe that that is a spot for you where you've become in tune with your flow state. And I think that, you know, right, if we're talking about enlightenment, we're talking about, like, and I've used the optics of the monk that set himself on fire in protest, right? And the amount of discipline, the amount of meditation that man had to go through to be able to be out of his body so much so that it could be on fire and he could sit peacefully, is that's a state, right? That is a complete and utter state that most human beings, I would dare say, may not attain in this lifetime. And so, if we're working on meditation and getting into a place where we are, the first step is to acknowledge it. The next step is to release it and then to begin to retrain it. But when you said, I want to get to this point where I don't even have that reactive, I mean, I feel like that, like, give yourself some grace there, because I feel like that space, we are still human. We are going to have an emotional reaction. That's normal and natural. Even your father-in-law, if it comes out wrong, that's probably coming from a place of an emotional reaction. Maybe it's not, but there's a potential that it could be. And I think
Yeah.
that, that's where you have to give yourself grace, because you're doing the actual disciplined work to move past that place within yourself with determination, with knowledge, with foresight, knowing that this is an issue that you are, I don't even want to say struggling with, but recognizing and attempting to divert or refocus, redirect. And that's the discipline and that's the work. And so if you are doing that form of meditation and getting yourself to a place where, you can not react. You may react in your mind's eye, you may have that emotional reaction, but that's what we do. That's our human nature, is to react. So the only thing we can do is not let it affect how we respond,
Yeah.
which is, and I feel like that flow state, the more you, and I do think that you definitely hit it when you play, but the more that we are in that flow state, and I've said this with another, I don't know if you know Sandy Roth, but I had her on, and she and I were talking all about yoga and Reiki, and we were talking about how, and I actually made an assessment between yoga and jazz. And when I'm teaching a yoga class and I get in that flow state, I don't write my classes out. I don't plan my classes. I just teach them, and I
Yeah.
practice. Right, I practice postures and asanas, but I don't practice the flows all the way through, because you may have somebody walk in and your whole lesson plan goes right out the window. And
Yeah.
so you have to be able to improvise and to live in that state of receptivity from your higher self, that whatever you want to call it. And I know that you do that with your music. I've seen the way that you play, and I know that all of that discipline and practice comes into your songwriting, your practicing, getting your band together, right? Like, there's an element of, and that's what, in my mind, that's what the meditation is, right? It's the practicing, it's the doing your own yoga, practicing your own yoga, it's the, writing your own song. It's all part and parcel of, some form of, like, manifesting the life that's going to work best for you, and in creating or cultivating a Nick that can make his kid a sandwich without snapping at him. And you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
being
no,
like in
yeah.
dad flow,
Well,
right?
no,
Like,
you're right. I mean, I totally get there with music and like, like you said, I mean, the building blocks like practicing and songwriting and booking the gigs and doing all that are all like the steps that I have to do to achieve that flow state, like when I get to play a gig, and it's same with like, eating healthy and meditation and all those things. Like those are all like the building blocks for what I need to do to sort of have that flow state when I'm going through my day-to-day operations. And that's, that comes back to what we talked about is the discipline piece. And it's like when I drive, I'll be like driving to a gig. It'll happen on Thursday. It'll be like 7:30 and I'll kiss my kids goodbye and I'll be driving an hour to go play a Nyack gig. And I'll be like, what am I doing? This is so dumb. Like I'm so sad right now to be leaving. And then I'll be driving home at like 2 in the morning. I'm like, this is the best life. I would never change any of this ever. And it's like, like I know that. Like I know that. Like I know once I get there and once like it all starts coming together, it's I'll have the guy a week before. I had two guys cancel on a gig in 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and I used to just get like, oh, and now I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Like it's all good. Like I'm gonna go there and play and have fun. I don't care what anybody thinks. Like I know we've got a good product, but you know what? Like it serves me. Like it makes me happy. It's what makes me whole. And like if you get with it, that's great. Awesome. If you're not with it, like I'm not taking that on anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. No, you can't. Like you can't. And that's and you've touched on that a little bit before when you were saying, having allowing yourself the grace to know that other people, if they were as authentic in their communication and their self-awareness to represent where they're coming from when they have those emotional reactions. Let's face it, in our job with real estate, less so maybe with yoga, but I've had some, grumpy yoga students as well. When we are fielding clients that aren't getting their exact way in the exact moment that they want to get their exact way, we become a punching bag as their agents,
Totally.
right? Right.
Totally.
And, I've had yoga students complain about the playlist. Like, all right, well, if you don't like, maybe I'm not the best yoga teacher for you because I like Pearl Jam. I
Yeah.
might play Pearl Jam during a yoga class. If you're not
Yeah.
into it, that's okay. You don't need to be, but don't yell at me. Just choose a different teacher and be grateful that you've now eliminated Pearl Jam from your yogic experience, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to remain authentic to who you are.
Definitely.
And that is how you find your tribe. That's how you create your tribe. That's how your clients align with you. That's how the people that listen to your music align with you, the people that come to your yoga class. That's the more in the flow state you are. I believe this to be true. The more that you are going to attract what is meant for you to you, and the more you honor yourself, the more authentic the attraction is going to be, and the better it's going to become. I hope that that's the case. I believe that that's the case.
Yeah.
And the more you come from that place of like grinding, right? And not that there's not an element that needs to be, but that like wearing you down at a certain point, like that's not authentic. You can't be worn down and live in authenticity, right? Because you're not being true to yourself at that point. You're just in
Yeah.
you're on the ground, right? And
Well, no,
in
that authentic piece is something I fight with so much because of like I'm like this country bluegrass rock star, but then it's like, well, that guy's selling multi-million dollar houses. What a fraud, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, you know what I'm doing? I'm taking care of my family and like I'm
yeah,
serving my clients and I'm serving my people and like it's like you have again, it's like you go through all this and it's like I have these conversations where like you just made this face like what are you even talking about, and like
like
that's the response. People are like, dude, like you're crushing it. Like you're doing
yeah.
so many things. You serve so many communities, on like a really, really high level. And, but your vision of yourself is that like, dude, like you need help. And that's like kind of where I was. It was I was like not seeing myself in this light. And, I had this really potent experience. There was this party, a couple of weeks ago, and like a month before that, like I've had some issues with moving from Colorado because I was so successful there, and we just bailed, and we totally didn't plan, and we just never been good at planning. And I was looking at my wife, like a couple of weeks before this party, and we were going to go on this Italy trip, and my health was haggard, and I was just like. I don't want to go to this party. I don't want to go to Italy. I just I'm like I have no friends. I totally don't feel like I have like the type of people that I did in Colorado and I'm this is not where we're supposed to be. And then it was like, and then we like went to the party and it was like, I had like 4 or 5 people come up to me and they were just like, I love you. Like, I love you so much. Like, and just like hugging me and like, like whatever you need. Like, you want to hang out, you want to go fishing, no drinking, like, like anything I can do. Like, and I asked my wife, I'm like, did you tell people that I like needed this? And she's like, absolutely not. And it was like all these people just like, knew that I needed that. And then I saw my buddy's parents who were like, they were outside and they've been married for like 50 years and they were kind of kissing, waiting for their Uber, like so precious. And I
Right.
run up, I'm like, break it up and I'm flying, feeling super good. And she goes, Nick, like, and I was with them for Easter of like a month before that and playing my guitar. The kids were playing and she's like, Nick, I just want to say like you are so special. And I was like, and her husband's like, yeah, yeah, he's family. And she's like, no, I don't mean that. Like, I mean like you are something really, really, really special. And she's like, that was like the best Easter that we've ever had. And she's like, you just sat there and it was just you. Like you were just playing your guitar and you were talking to everybody. And then you'd help with the kids. And she's like, you just like brought this like energy and this like set this tone that was just like infectious to be around. And she's like, it was so meaningful. Like, I just want you to know, like, you really, really, really touch us. And like, we're so grateful you're here. And then she just looks at me and she's just like, you're gonna be okay. And I'm like, are you like in my mind? Did like Kat, did like everybody plan this out, like, and like, she's like, like, it's gonna be okay. And she's like, but you have to choose it. And she's like, you have to wake up every morning and you have to choose your wife and you have to choose your kids. You have to choose your job. And she's like, some days you don't want to, but she's like, I'm telling you, like, if you don't, it's going to be a long, tough road. And she's like, but if you choose this life, and I'm telling you, it is the most beautiful life. Like, I see it right in front of you. Like, it is right there. And she's like, if you just choose it, like, you'll be here in 50 years with your partner, at your kids' party, hanging out with all their friends, and it will be a beautiful, beautiful life. And it was like, I was just like crying. I mean, I was crying,
Yeah.
like just tearing up. And I remember, and then her husband goes, all right, honey, the Uber's here, let's go. And they cruise out of there. And I'm like, ah, like in tears, and I just like throw my sunglasses on. I'm, lit up like a
I'm good.
tree.
I'm good.
Roll back into the party, just like, I choose it. I'm good. I'm good. I've been healed. And it was like so deep, but like I've said that to a couple other people who are like, older and like know what's up and feel like it. And they're like, that idea of choosing something is so potent. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy when it's simple, but it's like, you don't do it. You're like, no, I hate my job. Oh, I don't want to get up. Oh, I gotta meditate again. Oh, I gotta eat salad again. And all of a sudden you're like, dude, I choose you salad. Like, it's it's real.
No, I mean, yes, the struggle to choose salad is real for sure. Oh my
Was it
gosh, that's so
kale? Not
funny.
you, kale. But yeah, so that was my existential crisis averted with, just some warm embrace, and just a little bit of guidance.
Well, and honestly, like being surrounded by love, let's just like call it what it is. I mean, no one lives in a vacuum. And, did you ever, I'm not like a research type person, me, I'm not super into like the scientific deep dives, but do you remember the study about the rats and the, I want to say it was heroin. It was like some sort of hard drug. And they put isolated rats in with water. One of the bottles of water had a hard drug in it, cocaine or heroin. It was a bad one. And the other rats had regular water. And basically, what they found was the rats that were isolated and had access to the drug water killed themselves very, very quickly. Then they realized during the experiment that they didn't provide the rats with any other rats or anything to do. And they then gave them like rat paradises with all of these toys and other rats, and none of the rats went
Oh wow.
for the drugged water in any
Yeah.
capacity. And so it's really about, and we as human beings are social creatures and we need to have a network. And, there are times when you need your alone time, you need your meditation, you need your isolation in small doses, and you need to be able to be alone with yourself. Like that's obviously a massive part of the puzzle. But if you are in a dark place or, your mental health is suffering, if you're, like in any of those places, the support is huge. Family, friends, having a community. I mean, you started that set that moment out with, I'm not in the right place. My friends are in Colorado. Like what did we do? Right. Like, so from that place of like, I don't have support. I feel unsupported. I don't have a network. I'm an island or whatever it might be for you. And then in that moment, the universe gave you like and you had to choose to go to the party, right? Like you made the choice because you didn't want to go and you put yourself out there, and then the universe is like, I got you. We got you. Right?
That was
Like,
what was so crazy to me, was for me to have those feelings and then be like, wow, it's all right here. And I just don't see it. And that was where the choosing thing, I mean, the universe gave it to me 100%. And then just having that sort of mindset of choosing it, it's like, wow, like I went from being like, nobody loves me and it's all fake, and to like I have never felt so loved in my life. And it was like, get it, geez, dude. You just need to see a therapist.
No, but I mean, like, it's beautiful, and I love that that happened for you, and I think we all get that. Hopefully everyone gets that feeling of being loved and supported, because I think that if you if you have that, um, if you have that, you feel like like superhuman, right? If you have that, whatever
Totally.
the safety net looks like, right? Like it's your parents when you're
You're
little,
good.
right? Like someone's there to catch you if you fall, and having that kind of security, whether it's your parents, whether it's your wife, whether it's your friends, whoever it becomes as you evolve and grow, it gives you the confidence, it gives you the belief in yourself, the confirmation to go out there and choose those things. Because otherwise, you can spiral yourself right out of your best choice, right? Like that's what the worry, that's what that fear, that
Yeah.
that limbic system brain, that monkey mind, whatever you want to call it, it can just spin you right away from, like, had you not gone to that party, right? Like what if you didn't go to the party? Right? Sliding doors movie. Like, what if Nick didn't go to the party and then Nick decided that he was going to move back to Colorado, and, like, you know what I
I
mean?
know.
Like, and
Totally.
like just that one little kind of, that one choice, that one move, and to get you out of that spiral that you were in, that maybe wasn't even true. I mean, it was
Oh,
true
it
for you in the
clearly
moment,
wasn't.
right?
Yeah.
It was, but you felt it was. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things is the emotions, right? So that was you were living in the emotion of that overwhelm, upset, fear, loneliness, whatever it was, maybe all of the above or none. And you stepped out of it and out into the world around you, and the world around you said, "No, we've got your back. We've got you. You're good. We love you. We support you. You're awesome. Look at you. Look at all this awesome, amazing stuff you do. You are authentic. And just because you're a honky tonk rock star doesn't mean that you can't sell a badass 100-acre farm, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know
That
what I
doesn't make
mean?
you
Like,
less of a
it
person.
makes you more of a badass. How many other rock stars can sell real estate,
Yeah.
right?
No, no, I mean, I know, and it's people can say it till the cows come home, but until you see it yourself, and you have to just allow that, and you have to receive it, and you have to hear it, and it's people like my wife, like I tell her she's awesome and like she's an amazing acupuncturist. And I'm always like, how was it? How did your clients, were they stoked? And did you get any feedback? And she's just like, I don't need it like you do, dude. She's like, I'm good. Like I know I'm good. Like I don't need it. And she's like, but your love language is like, you want, reassurance and feedback
Words
and
of affirmation.
words of
Yes. Love,
affirmation.
like, words of
Exactly.
affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your
Yeah.
love language is words of affirmation. And we've gone through issues together because like I'm like begging for it and she's like, stop it. You know what I mean? And I was like, can we like sort of meet in the middle with us? And it's important to know, what you need and to ask for it and like feel comfortable to be like, I'm not being selfish. This is kind of what I need right now. And I think I asked the universe for it and and it gave it to me. And I finally like vocalized it. Like I just like sat in the bed with my wife and I was just like, life sucks for me right now. Like I'm so unhappy. Like, and I know that I shouldn't be. Like I know it. I know it's beautiful. Like I can see all these things, but like inside I am like dead, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And like, I just, I'm eating healthy. I'm not drinking. I'm doing everything that everybody's telling me to do. And I can't like get a hold of this pain and all this stuff. And it was like, as soon as I started like just owning it, like, and letting it out there and writing it down. And it was like, there was like all of a sudden it felt like the healing could like really begin. And then all of a sudden there was all these people there that were like, they just knew like on cue. Like it was pretty bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds kind of poignantly beautiful. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it was.
And it's like, we talked a little bit before about like the 180 versus the 360. And it feels like maybe you were putting your real and true and authentic emotions in the back 180. and
Yeah.
that you brought them out into the front, and then like the universe is like, oh, okay, we've got you.
Well, and
Like,
I had that experience. Like there's so many people at the party that I knew, and I remember my wife and I were like the only people, and we had sunglasses on, and it was like, someone like came up to me and they're like, "We need you to write the letter for the Lake Club." I was like, "Glasses, bye." Like I saw my clients, they were like, I was dancing. They're like, he was like, "Yeah," looking like he wanted to come in and dance with us, and then he just like steps on his wife's foot and like smashes her ankle, and she's just like gives this look, and I was like, "Glasses on later," like all these things where like normally I would have been like engaged. Oh, are you okay? Or, I was just like, you know what? No. Like
yeah,
back in 80, goodbye.
back
And
when he
and like nobody cared. Nobody was like, oh, you didn't check on me when my husband stepped on my
stepped on
foot
my ankle.
when you're outraging on the dance floor. Like, why would I even think that that is even like appropriate? But that's just like you just people
Yeah.
pleaser.
Yeah, well, of course. Like oh, I want to help with that. Like it's
Yeah,
just, and listen, I like people pleasing is not always great. It certainly is not great for the people pleaser. It can get you in a lot of bad circumstances, but I do believe that it comes from a place of inherent kindness.
agreed. I
And
totally
I
agree.
don't think that that's a bad way to be. I'd rather be inherently kind than, be living in the head of someone who's selfish and shady and, a liar or a manipulator. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather be kind and harmed because of my kindness than the opposite.
I totally agree. And that's the part about like knowing your limit, knowing your bandwidth, setting boundaries, prioritizing, and then going and kind of executing. And that, you know, it's there's the word sonder. Do you know that word? It's like everybody is out there having their own unique experience. Like that's Sonder. Like, the people listening to this right now are,
Yeah.
having their own thing. And the person, you saw the little meme where it's like everyone's in traffic and it's like, this guy's late to drop the kids off. This guy just got fired. This guy's got a sick dog that's going to the vet. This guy just had the best day of his life. Like there's just, like we're all just like on this plane having our own unique experience. And like we don't need to like go into everybody's mind and try to figure out how they're receiving every single, scenario that's involved with you. You're gonna kill yourself. It's just like it's not fair, and some people are more wired to do that. And I think, like you said, the intention inherently is good, but
Yeah.
like there's a point where it's like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah, it can become unhealthy, just like
Yeah,
anything like that. And that's where the discipline comes in, right? It's like even the healthiest thing for you, like you can drink too much water and die from it, right?
yeah,
But you have to drink a whole lot of water, right? And I don't want to say everything in moderation because it's trite, but it's true, but it's trite. But it's like everything has the potential to be harmful if you overdo it, right?
yeah.
Like it just, even the best things, like if you sit in meditation all day every day, and I know people, I mean, people do that, right? Sages, right? Like enlightened people can do that, but there's an element of, at a certain point you need to nourish your body as well, and that's where
Agreed.
it comes
Agreed.
to like the balance. Fine, and everyone's balance is gonna be different. There's no cookie cutter, hey, listen, you have to meditate for this long every day, and you have to do yoga for this long every day, and I mean, like, you'll drivers, even discipline in and of itself has to have some balance, because you have to be able, one day to say, like, you know what, maybe this day my son wants to go play catch, and then that's when I'm meditating, but that's when he can play catch, and it's okay that on this random Sunday I'm going to do that instead of meditate. That could be my
Absolutely.
meditation, right? So it's
Nobody's judging you.
right,
Stop judging yourself.
except for you, right? Except for you, you're the one,
And
you're the
actually, it's
one.
probably better that you go play with your kids. So let's think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there is no perfect. The only thing that matters more than anything is the self-awareness to be able to recognize and then implement so that you can like be better than you were yesterday. I feel
Totally.
like I feel like that's the end game. That's if we can get to an end game of this conversation that kind of didn't go in the direction I thought it was going to go, but I love that for us because I think that
Yeah.
it went where it needed to go, and that's why
Yeah.
I love doing this, because it's fun for me to just see how the conversation flows and get into that flow state. And whatever comes out is what was meant to come out.
Agreed.
I'm going to ask one final question because I have to, because you're a yoga instructor. What is your favorite yoga pose? We'll try to throw some yoga in here at some point. What do you have a favorite yoga
Yeah,
pose?
I mean, child's pose is
Yeah.
like, my go-to. I mean, I always like when I was doing my yoga training too, I like was right when I had my baby. So like I always loved Happy Baby. Like I'd always call it Happy Hanky. And I would
Oh,
just, and like he would do that too, and we would just lie on our back and but I mean, I am like I do kind of the old school yoga, my sun salutations, and I don't get too intricate on the postures, but I love that grounding feel of like the just child's pose when it's like you just the class is popping and you're just like I just need to like take a
I need a
beat here
minute.
and
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
feel my third eye just on my mat and then but I also like love the playfulness of Happy Baby. It's like usually at the end of a class, after a couple
Yeah.
back bends when you're on your back and you're finishing up doing your final thing. And I just have this really good memory of Happy Hanky every time I'm on my back. I think about, my kids and it's a nice way to enter Shavasana.
That's how I enter Shavasana pretty much every time, private
Uh,
clients or otherwise. Yeah, is
uh,
always end with the happy baby because it feels good, man.
yes.
It just feels good, and it's great for it's great for all the things. But I love that you mentioned like the grounding of your third eye because I feel like your favorite yoga pose is exactly what we just had an entire conversation about. Like our
Yeah,
whole conversation was about like self-awareness and hitting that point and just dropping in and realizing. And I feel like that particular yoga pose is a metaphor for everything that we just talked about. And I love that.
a lot of tracks.
Right? It totally tracks. It totally tracks. See? Flow state. Right now it's happening. This is it. This is what it looks
Cosmic.
like. Awesome. Well, Nick, is there anything, I mean, I would love to, would you mind dropping your band's name so people can go check you out? Um, and I will happily tag you on Instagram, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nick Dunbar, the cowboy band, we go by Nick Dunbar and Sad Cowboy, and then I play in a bluegrass band called the Lazy Sky, but everything is under my name, Nick Dunbar. You can go listen to my album on Spotify under Nick Dunbar and follow me, Nick W. Dunbar, and come out and see a show, and hopefully I'm in the flow state.
I believe that you are, like I said, we all have the areas where we hit the flow state, like, and I feel like that's our natural, our passion, whatever it is. And I feel like the more that you integrate that into the other parts, it just turns into one big happy flow state eventually. That's the goal, right?
On my way.
We're all on our way. Brother, we are all on our way. So I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and let everyone else that is listening know that I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing this space with me. And so I ask that you please feel free to share the same with your loved ones. For more goodness, follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast and visit my website, airsAboveYoga.com. And as always, don't forget to check out my other episodes and my amazing sisters at divasthatcare.com. You can find us on Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, hanging out with Nick Dunbar. I own Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground Podcast, where every day is a good one.